Hi, my name is Charlotte. I'm a Chartered Surveyor and I work at Jones Lang LaSalle. I work in investment, which is sometimes called agency, and I buy and sell commercial real estate for clients. Commercial real estate is a very broad term. Real estate tends to be divided into residential and commercial. So residential is houses and apartment buildings and places where people live, and commercial is things like offices, hotels, shops and that sort of thing. And when I say I'm an investment surveyor, what does that actually mean? So for example, if you had a shop, you've got Topshop on Oxford Street, for example. A lot of people don't realise that Topshop don't actually own the shop that they operate in. They have something called a lease, and they lease that space from a landlord, and those landlords are my clients. More recently, I've been specifically working with leased hotels. They're really good investments because they take 25-year long leases, and a lot of landlords like properties that have really long leases because it means that you own a building and you know that there's going to be a tenant in it for 25 years, so you can let the tenant operate it and you just collect your rent from them every quarter. What do I do on a day-to-day basis? It's a really difficult question to answer because every day is different. A lot of what I do is collecting data and tracking market trends. So I'll spend a lot of time on the phone speaking to other agents who have sold properties. Just in general, we'll go for coffees and we'll talk about things that they've seen on the market and things they might be bringing to the market, and it's a lot of exchanging information, and it's really beneficial to be really social and have really good relationships with other agents, because then you're able to hear about things that might be being sold early, and you can speak to your clients who might want to buy something. So as well as meeting agents, a lot of what I do is meeting clients. Typical clients for my company are big pension funds, and they have money that they allocate to invest in property to diversify their portfolios as opposed to just investing in things like stocks and shares. And we'll meet up with them on a regular basis to find out what their requirements are. So they might say we're looking for retail, or we're looking for offices in London, or we're looking for development sites in Manchester. And it's really important to maintain really good relationships with your clients and know what they're looking for, so that when you see a property coming to market, you can then call them up and say, I've got something that I think might fit your requirements. If they want to sell a property and they know that you have that kind of market intelligence, for example with hotels, if they want to sell a Travelodge or a Premier Inn, then they'll call you and say, please may you sell this property for me. If you're on the flip side and somebody else is selling a property, then you'll have to do that research on the property for your client to make sure that it's being sold at the right price. And then you might put a bid in for your client, and then you might go to second bids and third bids and hopefully be the best bidder and then end up buying the property for your clients. The best bits about what I do, I really enjoy my job. It's really sociable. You're always speaking to people, you're always on the phone and sending emails and meeting up with people for coffees and going for drinks and that sort of thing. Relationships are really important when you work in investment, so it's really important to present yourself in a really good way. I suppose one of my favourite things about working in property is you don't have to take yourself too seriously. Obviously there are some really serious points, but it's never, you don't really go into the office kind of dreading Monday and that sort of thing, which is really good. I suppose the bad bits about working in investment, the way that you're paid, or the way that your bonuses work, it's all done based on how much work you do. So you've found this amazing property for your client and they want to bid at a certain level, and then if that client then got that property, your kind of commission that your company would make that would make up part of your bonus would normally be about 1% of the sale price. Sometimes you'll do all that work and you won't win, and then you don't get anything. So there is a lot of the time where you really have to pick yourself back up and just kind of move forwards and move on to the next transaction without kind of dwelling on anything. I think what attracted me to a career in surveying was just speaking to people and having conversations about it. I didn't really realise when I was at school what surveying even was, and it wasn't until I was at university in my second year and I had a conversation with a friend whose dad was a surveyor. So I did some more research and I thought it was an industry I would really like working in. And then how I kind of got the job was doing work experience. If you are interested in doing work experience, then definitely try to research that. That's places like JLL, CBRE, Savills, Cushman & Wakefield. There are lots of things you can apply to. So how did I get my job? I figured out I wanted to work in real estate, and I was doing some work experience at a small boutique investment firm. And my main job when I was working at this firm was to go through all the brochures they had received from other agents selling properties and put it into Excel. And I would have to call up the agent and ask them if the property was still for sale. And when I was on the phone to them, I always made sure I said, "Oh, are you selling anything else?" And one of the ladies I spoke to said that they were actually selling a hotel. And some of the people in the office, they hadn't heard about this sale, but they had a client who had a requirement for a property that was similar to the one they were selling. Long story short, the client ended up buying the property. We all went for lunch to celebrate the deal going through, and I met the agent on the other side of the transaction, and he said that he was impressed by my initiative, by asking about the market. He needed a graduate, so he asked me to interview for a job there, and that's how I got it. So that sounds really easy, that doesn't, but it wasn't that easy at all. A lot of applications, a lot of research, a lot of failed interviews, but it was all worth it in the end. If you're not really sure what you want to do but you do want to go to university, do a degree that you find interesting. As I was coming to the end of my 3-year course, I wanted to work in real estate, so I was applying to the big companies. So when you're on the graduate scheme and you haven't got a real estate related degree, you're called non-cognate. So while I was doing my first 2 years of work at JLL, they paid for me to do a part-time master's, which was obviously amazing. It meant that I was able to work as well as studying, and a lot of the work that I was doing on a day-to-day basis was really relevant to the stuff that I was studying, and I was surrounded by lots of people who all had real estate degrees, so if I was ever struggling with any coursework, everyone was always really helpful with that. So I would definitely recommend considering a non-cognate pathway, but it's definitely an option if you don't want to pay for your degree and if you're not sure what you want to do. So what's it like being a young person in the sector, which is so white, male dominated, and would you encourage others to follow in your path? Well, firstly, it can be really difficult at times being in a sector that is dominated by old white men. As a female or as a minority, it's difficult not being able to see people who are like you at the top. You can struggle to kind of find those relevant role models. But what's really good about the real estate industry is there's a really genuine drive for change. They've really acknowledged that we've got a problem with diversity and inclusion. There's not enough equality, and people are working really hard and volunteering their time to make the sector a better place. So I really would recommend and encourage other people to follow in my path. Real estate is such a huge industry. No matter what your talents are and what your personality is, there's something for everyone. There's so many different parts of it, whether you're a building surveyor or you want to work in planning or you want to be an investment agent. There's so much to do. So I would really recommend that you do your research, you learn about the industry, because I guarantee you'll be able to find something that would align with your interests. So what advice would I give to young people wondering what to do for their careers? I think my main advice would probably be don't just look at what your parents do or what the people who are in your immediate circle do. Do as much research as possible, get online, create yourself a LinkedIn profile. There's so many different things that you can do, and not just real estate, but things like marketing, advertising, and I think the problem is that unless you kind of know someone who does a job already, it can be really hard for young people to find out about other career options. You can never speak to enough people, but it's never going to hurt to just be really inquisitive, because you might stumble upon something and just think, that is exactly what I want to do, that's perfect for me.